Hello and welcome. Aquarister here, coming to you with a build video. Today we're talking about my favorite healing build, which is Life Staff Hammer. Now this has been kind of my favorite build to be running lately. It is very fun to run. You used to see it a little bit more often back when heavy armor was kind of the go-to for paladin builds and stuff, and then they nerfed that. Light armor kind of became the go-to for healing, and you kind of saw a lot of those kind of paladin style builds, I guess, or paladin style weapons being used. It just kind of went away. A lot of people started using rapier, void gauntlet, which void gauntlet, rapier are fantastic secondaries to run. There's nothing wrong with running them, just a little bit different play style than what I'm looking for. So I came up with a life staff hammer build, which I used to really like back in the day, put it down for a long time, and now we're coming back to it. And I've really tried to focus in on this build and figure out exactly what I do and don't like about it. So let's first go over the gear. So first is the armor. So for armor, I'm wearing two pieces of the Sagacious Fit. First one is the hat, which allows us to have Fortifying Sacred Ground. Fortifying Sacred Ground is an ability that you for sure are going to want on your armor. As a healer, it is very good for your helping with the fortification, keeping people alive, your tank, yourself. Everyone really is going to benefit from the 10% fortification from that. Now, the fortifying does only kick in when someone gets healed by it, so they must take some damage or at least get healed by the Sacred Ground in order for that 10% to pop in. So yeah, that is a very essential ability or perk. I do highly recommend having that. As a healer, I don't think I've ever not had that, so definitely want to make sure you get that. For our chest piece, we're getting a stack of Shirking Fortification, Refreshing Elemental Version. The Sagacious gear you can get from Tempest, whether that's regular or mutated, either one can drop the Sagacious Fit. So I do highly recommend as a healer, even if you don't use all the pieces, it's nice to have them because there are going to be times where you might want to swap stuff in and out. So Sagacious Fit, very nice. Gloves here, I've got Refreshing Divine Embrace and Shirking Fortification. Empowering Breaker isn't that great. I don't really use it, but it came with the armor. It was a good deal, so I bought it. But Refreshing Divine Embrace, really good perk to have as a healer because you get such a good cooldown from it if you heal someone below 50%. And oftentimes with Divine Embrace, you're using it on someone because they need a little extra healing, where the AoE heals just aren't enough. So really good perk to have, whether that's on your armor or on your weapon. Sacred Ground, I do highly recommend to have on your armor, though. On to the pants. For the pants, I have Mending Protection. I don't always run Mending Protection. You will notice some increases in your healing output, like an OPR or something like that. You'll probably notice a little bit increase, and it does help to heal some people below 50% health. Big thing for me though is if someone's below 50% health, I'll toss an orb and then throw a Divine Embrace right away if I can target them and stuff. And that usually the Divine Embrace does enough to just like pop their health up. On a tank or something, the Mending Protection probably is a little bit more beneficial, strictly because they have more con typically. So Mending Protection, not 100% necessary, but is nice to have. Have that on your armor or on your weapon, doesn't really matter too much. Either one is really good. And then on to the boots. For the boots, we are primarily wearing this for the Sundering Shockwave. The Elemental Aversion and Refreshing Ward are nice perks to have as well, but the Sundering Shockwave is what we really need for our hammer build to work to its fullest. Next, we'll go on to jewelry. For jewelry, this amulet is absolutely fantastic for this build. Health, Divine, Fortified. Health and Divine as a healer, I think, really helps increase your survivability quite a bit. And with this particular build, the Fortification or the Fortified perk is really nice to have. That 30% longer will actually help keep you alive a little bit longer in some situations. For a ring, the two perks I will always recommend to a healer are Hardy and Sacred. The third perk is kind of up to you. I oftentimes run nature damage, so I can just do a little bit more damage, but the other ring I wear is this one here, and that has leeching instead of the nature damage. Same perks otherwise, slightly different attributes, not a big deal. But yeah, leeching, nature damage, those are the two that I recommend. I don't really go for keen. Keen doesn't really matter too much for your life staff. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Or, well, keen awareness, I suppose, is what it's called for the rings. But yeah, I just stick to these two perks, nature damage or leeching, and that seems to work really, really well for me. And then for earrings, I am using, let's see, refreshing toast, and focused. The two perks that I highly recommend for a healer are refreshing toast and focused. Focused is the plus 49% mana regen, so that's pretty nuts. That's a really big increase. Refreshing toast to have a shorter potion cooldown is really nice as a healer because you can put more focus into healing everyone else and keep some of those potion cooldowns for yourself. So you're not kind of using your heals on only yourself, but your teammates as well. And then for weapons, we'll start with the hammer. My hammer, I've been extremely happy with it. We have Plague Strikes, Trenchant Rend, and Chain Nature. So obviously, the Chain Nature is also buffed by the ring that we got, and then we're running a Nature Gem. So then we're also converting half of our damage into Nature as well. So that's also buffed by the ring. Trenchant Rend, fantastic ability. Especially against single targets, you can wind up that big heavy, apply a 14% rend, plus we get 10% rend here from our shockwave. So we're applying a 10% and a 14% rend. And then also for PvP or some PvE ads, you can use Plague Strikes, and every single heavy attack that we hit someone with will apply a disease of 24% for 8 seconds, which is pretty huge, especially for PvP. That's nice because that just limits their overall healing. Again, PvE, there's only going to be a few enemy types that you might end up getting use out of that. But overall, really, really nice hammer. I've been extremely happy with it. I haven't even really looked at other hammers yet because this one's worked out so well for me. And then for the life staff, I've been using Reluctant Savior a lot. I really like the Blessed Chain Nature Refreshing Evasion. I wish it was just Refreshing Move, but their Refreshing Evasion honestly works really well. Especially if you have stacks of Refreshing Evasion. But for now, this is what I've been using. It's worked out really well. Yeah, I mean, there are other life staffs. I do have Will of the Ancients, which if you have Will of the Ancients and you don't really have any other life staffs or don't have interest in like farming life staffs or buying them, honestly, Will of the Ancients works great. It's really, really easy to get from Lazarus. It drops pretty frequently. Yeah, I would say Will of the Ancients is probably like, it's been the go-to for a while. There are other ones, but for not having to run mutated, Will of the Ancients is fantastic. So if you can run Lazarus, might as well get that and start using it. It's just overall really nice. You can crank out a lot of heals because of the refreshing move. So that's kind of the gear that we're looking at. This gear set has worked really, really well for me. I haven't had really any issues with it. I swap things in and out. Like I said, the pants, sometimes I swap to one that has Shrinking Fortify, Freedom, and one other perk, but no Mending Protection. Sometimes I'll do that just for survivability. But again, just kind of dependent on the situation. So next, let's go over attributes. Attributes, this is what I aim for, 345 focus or more focus, but 117 con. And there's a reason why it is 117 every single time. Reason being, if you look at any of the event consumables where they offered, con, intel, food, anything like that, they're always going to be 33 increase in con intel for 25 minutes. And the reason why I do that is because they are so much cheaper than buying like the 40 con version or the 40 attribute version. Usually, like if you buy them at the right time, you can get these for pretty cheap. Spice Nog, or I forget what the sturgeon is called from the summer event. But any of those, I do highly recommend buying them when they're below $30. Because they are pretty cheap compared to the 40 versions of them. And for like OPR and stuff, I don't feel like I'm wasting food by using them because they're really not that expensive. So that's why we go with 117, because after 33, it'll get us up to 150. And I only take con food if I feel like I just need a little bit of extra survivability. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'll take a focus food to get that focus up to 378 or something like that. But it just depends. So that is what I run for attributes, though. And then let's go to mastery next. Look at the life staff. So this is the life staff build that I run. So feel free to take a look. You're more than welcome to copy it, adjust it as you see fit. But the 3 abilities that we run are Divine Embrace, Sacred Ground, and Orb Protection, which we do have the perks for those. Let's go through some of these perks though, so you kind of have a better understanding of what each ability is capable of. So for Divine Embrace, you are going to heal for 120% weapon damage. Divine Embrace costs 20 mana, so it does cut the cost down by going with that first perk. 5 mana doesn't seem like much when you're throwing out a bunch of Divine Embraces because you have refreshing and all that. Refreshing Divine Embrace. You will notice that you're burning through your mana pretty quickly. So the 5 you're saving each time is pretty nice. And then I only go down to the second perk, which if your target is below 50% health, heal 1 additional ally within 8 meters for the same amount. So that does kick in quite often because usually I'm using Divine Embrace on someone who just needs like that much more healing. And by the time you actually cast it and send it out, they will usually take a little bit more damage. And then if they're below 50, it'll send another heal off, which leads us into Divine Blessing. Divine Blessing, when you heal an ally below 50% health, they are healed for 30% more. So literally, if you heal that person, they're healed for 30% more. And then if it sends it to another person who's below 50% health, they also get healed for 30% more. So it's a huge buff if you can heal someone below 50% health. And then we have Sacred Ground. Most of us know what Sacred Ground do. It heals allies for 16% weapon damage every second for 12 seconds. First perk, you can regenerate stamina and mana 50% faster, so that's pretty huge from a mana standpoint especially. It really allows you to keep your mana up and kind of refresh it over time. And the third perk is a 50% healing buff when allies are in Sacred Ground. So that is absolutely necessary for Sacred Ground to be as strong as it is. So you really want to make sure that you have that. For your kind of sub perks, we got Absolved, so your light and heavies don't consume mana. Again, mana consumption is really important, mana management, all of that. You want to make sure you're really managing your mana properly so you don't run out when you absolutely need it. So that's really nice. Blissful Touch, so your light attacks now heal for 16%. So if you think about it, you literally have a healing ability that you don't have to use mana for. And that's really nice because even as you're trying to like regain mana, if you're shooting the enemy and hitting your teammates while you're shooting the enemy, you're not only applying damage but also applying heals, which is a really really big thing for healers. Is positioning yourself where your teammate is in between you and the enemy. So as you're sending light and heavies through your teammates, you're healing them with every single light and you're doing damage. So you really want to be efficient with your use of even just your light and heavies. Even though they don't use mana, you still want to be sure that you're using it in a way that's beneficial for the team in the most ways possible. So very, very good perk. Revitalize, when you hit with a light attack, reduce life staff cooldown. So that's another one, it's more or less just a refreshing move that you get on the weapon itself, no matter which life staff you're using. So really, really nice to have. If you stack that with refreshing move, you can shorten your cooldowns by quite a bit. The last perk that I have on this side is Intensify. When you hit with a heavy attack, gain a stacking 10% bonus to healing effectiveness for 10 seconds. That's a 30% buff in healing that you can get literally from just landing 3 heavies. So what I usually tell people is if you swap weapons, let's say you're on your hammer and you swap back to your life staff, it'll reset those stacks. So you want to just try to land 3 heavy attacks right away and then follow up with a few, 2 or 3 light attacks, then another heavy, because every heavy after that will just continue the timer. You won't have to reset the stacks unless that timer's all the way up. So keeping those heavy attacks going, but also throwing a lot of light attacks for heals and damage are really, really important. Plus, you're getting cooldowns from your light attacks. So finding a decent rhythm of like heavy, light, light, heavy, or heavy, light, 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 heavy, however works for you from a timing standpoint. And again, each situation might be a little different, but that is what I recommend. Over on the protector side, we've got Orb of Protection. Orb of Protection, one of the big things is the Fortify. The healing obviously is important, but we get a 10% Fortify for ourselves and allies. This adds the recovery, so they get a 6% damage over time, or weapon damage of heals over time every second for 10 seconds. So that's pretty essential. Actually, all these perks for Orb of Protection are pretty essential. So you want to try to get all of these. Third perk is if you heal an ally with Orb Protection, you automatically get those buffs. So you get the Fortify and the Recovery. So you don't need to hit yourself with it with like the splash from this last perk. You just need to heal someone else with it. And if you do that, you get the buff. So that's why some people and sometimes you do need to use it on yourself and you just splash your feet. But a lot of times you can just send it into a teammate and you'll get the Fortify. So it works out pretty good that way. And then for our perks on the protector side, Bend Light, there's no reason not to have this perk. Every single time you dodge for 5 seconds, you get 20% buff to healing. And I mean, yeah, there's just really no reason not to have that. There's a 20% buff to healing that you don't really have to do anything. For my build, I will run Protector's Touch, so it's a 15% fortify from any light or heavy for 3 seconds when hitting enemy. So it's like you're always going to guarantee yourself a 15% fortification with that, more or less. So really good one to have. Protector's Strength, if you have a buff heal for 20%, you pretty much always have a buff going. So again, one that makes no sense to not have, so you might as well have this one. And then the last perk that we're looking at is Glowing Focus. So life staff buffs you grant last 20% longer. For this particular build, I do highly recommend that perk. You can change it up if you want. You know, you could run like Sacred Protection, something else, but I do highly recommend having Glowing Focus for this build specifically. So there's our life staff. On to the hammer. The 3 hammer abilities that we'll be using are Wrecking Ball, Shockwave, and Clear Out. Now, Wrecking Ball, you want to make sure you get all 3 perks. Well, actually, all these you want to make sure you get all 3 perks. But Wrecking Ball is going to give you a 20% fortification with this second perk, and that lasts for 7 seconds. Plus, remember, we have that amulet that increases that by 30%. So, that's an instant 20% fortification. This does damage to a 1.5 meter radius, meaning you have that much more of a chance of landing it, meaning you get 20% fortify in that smaller radius. Shockwave. A lot of us know Shockwave. It'll apply a weaken. You can increase the range. We have the Sundering. You have Grit. Shockwave is just a really, really good ability. It's going to offer you a lot of peel so you can get away. You can help other people get away. Really, really good ability. So definitely Shockwave and Wrecking Ball, 2 that I would highly recommend. And then Clear Out. Clear Out's kind of up to you if you'd like to run that. I've really enjoyed it because it adds a fortify to yourself and your allies to 10% fortify for 4 seconds to all friendlies within 6 meters. But again, we have that amulet that increases all of our fortification that we are giving. So we do get to increase our fortify. It has the CC. You get a cooldown reduction for every hit. And then I do this one because we do need to get Aftershock. So you get a little speed buff, which actually, if you do like a Shockwave, Wrecking Ball, or a Shockwave, Clear Out, or whatever, and you get that haste, you can peel for yourself, get the haste, and just run out. It's fantastic. For passive abilities here, on the Juggernaut side, we have Armor Penetration from light and heavies because we are going to be applying quite a few heavy attacks, especially. We have exhaustive attacks, so we apply exhaust as well with all of our abilities. So again, even if they use their stam, their regen is going to be, dwindling. So they're gonna struggle to get that stam back. Adding grit to heavy attacks, always a good thing, especially as a healer. You can utilize that grit to get out of certain abilities. Heavy attacks are reduced cooldowns. So again, we are going to be landing a lot of heavy attacks with this build, meaning we might as well take the cooldown reduction from that. On the Crowd Crusher side, we have Outnumbered, where we increase damage absorption by 10% if surrounded by 2 or more enemies. So again, that's another fortify that doesn't have a timer on it. It just is based on enemies around you. So it's really, really nice. If you get surrounded by at least 2 or more, you're guaranteed that you're going to be at 10% fortification immediately without any abilities popping off. Next one, reduce hammer cooldowns by 7%. Again, we're using a lot of light attacks. A lot of times when we're attacking with our light and heavies, they already have the debuff going, so we are going to get some reduction on that. Concussive Impact, deal 15% increased damage against targets affected by Warhammer debuffs. Again, we might as well, because with this, we're getting cooldowns anyways with light attacks. We might as well get 15% extra damage. And then Prevailing Spirit, we gain 35% of damage dealt as health. So that's really nice because with the Shockwave, if we're in a sacred ground and we land a shockwave followed by a clear out, you will actually regain quite a bit of health because you'll be surrounded by a bunch of enemies. You'll drop that in your sacred ground especially, and yeah, you'll notice it. And then of course, like I said, we run aftershock. So whenever a target is affected by a crowd control effect, they are slowed by 20% for 4 seconds. So we are applying slows, we're applying exhaust, we are applying a lot of debuffs with this build. So you take all the debuffs from the hammer build itself. You also apply the Trenchant Rend, the Plagued Strikes, and a Sundering Shockwave. So we are now applying so many debuffs in a short period of time, because I'm going to show you here how fast we can get our fortification up. Fortification does have a cap. I believe it's 50%. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's a 50% cap on fortification, at least currently with where the game is at. But let me show you here. So we'll use these practice dummies. And when we use Splash of Light, we're getting a 10% fortification. And because, again, we have that amulet and all the buffs that we have, we can get this up to a 30-second fortification, which is pretty awesome. So there it is, 30 seconds. With Sacred Ground, it won't give you that fortify unless we take damage, so it's not going to show it, but for testing purposes, we're just going to pretend like I have an extra 10% buff from this, because ideally, they'd be hitting us back. So let's see here. So we are aiming for 50% fortification, right? So 10%, 10%. This is 20%, right? So now we're up to 40%. And then a clear out, which is another 10%. So now we have 2 10s from our life staff, 10% from orb, 10% from sacred ground, 20% from our wrecking ball, and another 10% from our clear out. So that is 50% fortification. If that is the cap, then we have hit cap that quickly. So let me show you. It'll go like that, 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 that. Even if they have grit, if you land the attack, you get the fortify from it. So we are now able to stack 50% fortify, meaning incoming damage is reduced by 10%. Incoming damage is actually reduced by 50% if we land all of these abilities. Now, will you die some of the time? Yeah, because you're jumping into the enemy, but that's what makes this build so much fun, is those times that you go in and you're landing those hammer abilities and you drop one big shockwave and you watch your team follow up on that play, and you know that shockwave, caused a lot of people to push and to win a point or anything like that. It just feels so good. So again, let's show that again. So 10%, 10%, 20%, 10%. We're at fortification cap that quickly. And if you start with the orb, look, we still had that. We still had 22 seconds on that. Now, let's say we get in there, right? Let's do that combo again. 10, 10, 20, 10, but we're losing that, right? So now once we're losing this fortify, there's another 15%. So now we have a 15% plus a 10% as we're moving away. So we're at 25% fortification just on our life staff from running away like this. So if you, again, 10, 20, 40, 50, shockwave, roll out, and then we keep our fortify as we're backing out of the fight. So then even though like we lost our fortify from the hammer, we're just stacking it immediately. Because if we can stack a 15% fortify, that's so much better than nothing. But yeah, so this is the build that I've been running. I've really, really enjoyed it. Again, from a positioning standpoint, I'm going to be playing kind of with the mages, with the other healers. I peel for myself. So let's say an assassin's trying to get me. Even if they land that first attack, unless they have a combo that can kill me instantly, if I get my hammer out or anything, I'll be able to peel for myself. The minute I peel, I can either choose to keep hitting them, or I can take that time to run away. And in that time that I run away, I'm getting my cooldowns back. I'm rejoining the team. I'm getting assistance. But on the flip side, when we go more aggressive with it and we're rolling into a group like that, oftentimes I will kind of target kind of where I'm trying to push. So I'll drop my circle and then I might come in with a slam just like that. So we might shockwave while on the edge of our sacred ground because again, we'll wait for a cooldown here, but again, the range of a shockwave is much bigger than people think. So we go like this and watch how far out this goes. So that still goes to the edge. So you can literally stand on the edge of your circle if you need to and drop that. So with this build, like I said, it's all about fortify. You're going to stack your fortification. You're going to drop your heals while your fortification is on cooldown. Keep yourself alive. So I won't always go super heavy hammer, but let's say there's an opportunity to come in, do this, use my cooldowns, and then roll out. From there, I am just peppering with my life staff. You know what I mean? I'm just constantly shooting. I'm constantly keeping it going, waiting for those hammer cooldowns. Once you have the cooldowns, you can make another play. Or if they're being really aggressive, you can hold on to those abilities to peel for yourself and your team. Your team will love you if you will peel for them. As a healer, there's nothing I love more than someone who will actually peel for the healers to keep them alive and moving. But yeah, so that is going to do it for this one. I hope you really enjoyed this build video because this currently is my favorite build in New World. As a healer, I got sick of people not peeling for me. I got kind of bored of using just Void Gauntlet. Rapier wasn't really my style. I couldn't figure out what I wanted. Hammer is what's made it so much fun for me to heal again. I've always been kind of a main healer, and now I'm just really enjoying having fun with it and kind of going against the grain of what a healer should do in this game. You know, I in OPR I make a lot of plays. I don't always make the best plays, and we don't always make them, but boy is it fun with this hammer life staff. So I really hope you enjoy this build. I will definitely try to do more build videos in the future, so please let me know if there are any specific builds you'd like to see or any specific weapons or roles or anything like that. I'd be more than happy to come up with something, or I might already have some builds figured out for that. Plus, with Greatsword coming out, I will be doing a Life Staff Greatsword build video once I actually figure out what I'm going to be doing for Greatsword, but it'll be a really good time. I'm excited for that. So don't forget to subscribe. I'll have more videos like this. Yeah, it's been fun making these videos. I do stream on Twitch, so you're always welcome to stop by a stream. I do loot runs. Occasionally I'll do some dungeons, OPR, all that fun stuff. Just kind of try to keep the content coming, and we have a lot of updates coming up. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.